Dirty Dragster, the Coca-Cola bottlers of Chicagoland present the Mr. Chevrolet USA Super Dual Body Car Showdown. From Pennsylvania, it's three-time national champion Jungle Jim Lieberman. From Dallas, Texas, Market and Martin's Drag-On Vega. From Alabama, the bold one, Bobby Wood. From New Jersey, Bruce Wesson's fantastic USA 1.
How was that?
That's the greatest
intro.
That's the best intro ever, man. That is like real. That is awesome. I dig that.
Well, I just took a whole bunch of crap and put it together. Back when I used to have time. To do things. So
the Nitro, when the Nitro comes on and they're actually going down the track, that gets me. That gets me that little goosebumps. Yeah. I dig that.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you what, I have some other video and stuff, like when I went to the Hot Rod reunion in Bowling Green, like in 2003, and then I got another one from like 2009. That's pretty cool. That it was neat. I could actually throw a bunch of stuff in there, but I just did the normal intro, and I'm thinking I'm having fun with it. But how was your week, man? It went by fast for me.
It went by fast for me also. I've been really busy. After PRI, I've had to get caught back up, and then we're only at work for 2 days next week. We basically have tomorrow, but then after that, it's basically a luncheon, and then we're out of there. So, and then we have 2 days next week, and then we're back at it the following week.
Yeah. Well, I've been kind of the same way, just in and out of the office I got my kids are already off of school, so it makes it really hard to do anything during the day because you essentially have a tag along, right? But and so I don't know. I've just been Christmas shopping and a whole bunch of crap, trying to get everything done and caught up, and I'm just constantly behind. I started 2 months behind this year, and I'm probably going to finish 2 months behind, and then start the next year behind.
Drag Boss just super chatted. Is it a super chat?
Yeah. Let me go through the intros. Mr. Drag Boss himself. Thank you very much, Mr. Drag Boss. We did get the super chat ironed out, right? It was hung up in super chat purgatory, is what I guess it would be called. But we got it ironed out, and now you're more than welcome to super chat us if you'd like. And let's get all over your questions, especially if you're like really impatient and you need Professor P to answer your question, or your head's going to explode in front of the keyboard. We'll go ahead and answer it. Just send a super chat. We'll answer that sucker, and then we'll keep you from your head from exploding, which is always a terrible thing, right? I hate when my head explodes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and say, thanks for coming back, Professor P. This has been a good time. Let's see. Don English is in here. Uncle Squirrel stopped by and then jetted. We got Fab Race Mod Repeat out of Northeast Dragway. Dr. Art's Hot Rod Rehab. Dr. Art and I have been working on a secret AHRA project. Hopefully we'll have something where everybody can see it around New Year's. I can't guarantee anything, but it is looking on the up and up. Professor P has seen some inside footage of it.
I don't know. Can't say nothing.
I'm hoping it works out. I don't want to throw anything out there and get everybody's hopes up and then not be able to deliver, but it's looking on the up and up. It's definitely something that if you are a hot rod racing enthusiast, you're going to want to partake in this.
100%.
Yeah. So we got Richard Bucket is here. Evening, gents. Evening, Mr. Richard Bucket. Let's see. A-Co, Merry Christmas. Yeah, Merry Christmas. I hate seeing the like Happy Holidays or whatever. It's Merry Christmas. Like here we are, Merry Christmas. If you are Jewish, you have a Jewish holiday coming up. Happy Hanukkah, right? But I hate when they roll it all together and dumb it down.
Yeah, for us, today is the winter solstice. So today's the beginning of ours till January 1st, I believe, is our big time for us.
What religion is that one? Is that the Wiccan deal?
That's pagan, yes. Pagan Wiccan.
Pagan? Okay. All righty. I already did that one. Colleen Tebow. Hello, everyone. So Colleen's here. Bear Rose Garage, Bear Rose Kim stopped in. Is going to bless us with his Merry Christmas. John Wilbur is here. Hello, party people. Well, we haven't started the party yet. It's now officially started since you're here, John.
That's right, John. We all take a drink now.
Yeah, Bill Makaiska is in the house. Let's see. Oh, I don't even know how to say that one. Sistori? Yeah, I guess so. Something like that. I guess he likes the intro. So, hey, stick around. You'll see it a few more times.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got Clint's Street Machines is in the house, and Clint is a staunch supporter of pretty much everything we do. Clint doesn't live too far from me. He's pretty far from you, Shane. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's about, I guess probably 2.5 hours from me.
Oh, well, Clint's cool, man. I like Clint.
6.5 hours from you or something. Not within driving distance of a daily drive, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Fab Race Mod Repeat says only 2 months. 2 months until what, buddy?
I think racing season's starting again.
Well, maybe because in North Carolina, their racing season starts like February and ends in like November, December, end of November.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like how it is down here in at the racetrack that I go to, Holly Springs and Baja. They just basically there was a couple of weeks that was really cold, so they quit it, but they normally don't stop until the end of November.
Well, and that's they ran out at Northeast, I think, through December or up to December last year. But this year, winter came so early. It was probably like a month early, right? It got to where it got cold. It started getting cold. And it's like, wow, we'd like to race, but man, this early break is actually kind of something we've been looking forward to. I think if they pulled the plug, like it was just getting sketchy at best, because at night when the sun would go down, the temperature would drop significantly, and then it's hard to get the cars to hook, especially the really fast ones.
Yeah.
But Mr. Drag Boss Garage sent us a super chat right out of the gate. That's a Merry Christmas if I ever seen one, Mr.
Right.
Drag Boss. Yeah, and he has. I watched his latest video. He brings his kids in there and has fun with his kids, and it's like, man, I got kids that they will not do that stuff. I don't know why. They're just not interested in it.
10 minutes. After 10 minutes, they're done.
Really? Even your kids the same way?
Yeah, 10 minutes. And I tell them, it's like, man, you got a wealth of knowledge right here. And they come up there, and then after 10 minutes, they're done. That's it.
This is so boring. The wife is in here. Merry Yuletide Christmas week all.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dakota's timeout says, howdy, everyone. John Wilburn lets everyone know that he's the bouncer. So,
yeah. Nice.
Well, what do we got for Tech Talk questions, folks?
Well, I'll tell you what I got going on. I actually got some cool stuff going on.
Okay.
I just got all my fuel injection stuff for my Slant 6. So
really?
Yeah. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start probably on Friday. I'm going to start going to a throttle body fuel injection. So that'll be the very first one. I'm going to drive that for about 6 or 7 months to see if I can get close to that, better than 24 miles to the gallon. And then after that, I'm going to build another engine on the side that's going to be the multi-port fuel injection. So that one's going to be, that's going to be a whole different deal. So I'm going to see which one's better. Carbureted, I've done all the carburetors, and then this is going to be throttle body injection. We'll see.
You know what? So I do know something that does work for fuel economy, and I kind of wonder if it would work in your situation. What kind of octane fuel you guys have out there?
I'm running 93.
You run 93? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're already running the good stuff, the meaty stuff, right? Can a Slant 6 be a quench motor?
Quench? Well, it's got such a long stroke, it's really hard.
Well, does it have a quench pad?
Not really, because the
chamber head?
Yeah, the chamber, I mean, man, you probably could, but you'd have to whack so much off the deck, because basically you have a part of the cylinders in the chamber, and the piston is 180 thousandths into the hole. So literally after you whack 100 thousandths off, there's really no quench on that, really. I mean, you'd have to probably take 300 thousandths off the head, maybe 200.
Well, I do know that works. Okay, that 351 Windsor that I built as a 393 originally, I made a quench motor out of it. It was 10 3/4 to 1, and I ran it on 93, and it was 393 cubes in a 3/4 ton truck. Would get a majority of the time was 25. Okay, and that is a really good number for such a big cubic inch engine and in a heavy truck.
Yeah. That would be really hard on Slant 6. Too small of a bore. It's a 3.4 bore with a 4/125 stroke. So there's really nowhere to put a squench in that because you have such a long stroke. There really is none. If it was like a big piston short stroke, yeah, I think you could probably get away with it.
I'm wondering if you can get away with like 215 or Rover 4-liter pistons. And
I think they're a 2.2. I think there's a Wiseco piston. If you change the rod, I think it's a 198 or is it a 170 and you put the 198 crank in it, and then there's a piston that you can put in there with a different rod, and it's a shorter style of rod, and it comes out really good. But I'm trying to do it without all the trick stuff. I'm actually just trying to do it with what the regular guy will have, a 225 that they just pulled out of their dump truck or whatever, or they found, so at the bottom of a trash can.
That was the original engine you started with, instead of like a pocket full of money dumped into a Slant 6 to make something work.
And each one of these things I've done a rebuild on, like myself. I literally, if it had a bore on it, like if it had taper on it, I took it out and had them bore it. But everything else I did myself. The bearings, and then balancing it, I did it all myself. And so that way, there's nothing trick about it. It's all just reman stuff. So, and that's what's really been difficult on is take as much weight away from the reciprocating mass as possible. So that way you can kind of
that's where you use that lightweight crank, right? So Dakota's asking, how does stroke affect quench?
If you got too much stroke, you can't put quench in it. That's the problem.
Yeah, the compression would be like stupid high.
Yeah, I'm running 9.5 to 1 compression right now, and how it affects it is that if you have like any type of quench area, you would literally then have a dome, because I have a 4/120. A Slant 6 is kind of a special engine. They have a 4/125 stroke and a 3.4 bore. So there's really nowhere to put a quench. And I literally have 9.5 on this thing to 1 compression, and it's still 100 thousandths in the hole. And so, yeah, you just can't get it any closer.
Well, and I was doing it a little easier in that 393 because it's literally just putting flat top 302 pistons in a 351 Windsor and then a 385 stroke crank, right? And then you're using stock rods, stock replacement pistons. I just used a Hyper-Tectic 302 piston, and the crank I think was the most expensive deal out of the whole thing. And I want to say the crank was super cheap when I bought it. It was like $220 or something like that, and you can't hardly get one turn for that kind of price. So it was like, well, this is a no-brainer. This is just a cast crank. The motor's not meant to be spun above $5,000. It's not. It was meant to be a low RPM truck motor that made good torque and got good fuel economy. The downside was, if I had to go to 91 octane gas, it literally sounded like you took your 393 out and replaced it with the world's largest coffee can filled with marbles, and then just shook the crap out of it, right? And it would rattle so bad. I mean, it'd knock your teeth out of your head, and you could not give it any throttle. You couldn't get under any load whatsoever.
That's what I had. When I first did the Slant 6, I wanted 9.5 to 1 because that's actually what I was trying to go for. And the same problem was happening with me, is that it literally sounded like marbles were being, until I got the timing curve just right for the gears, because it comes in and then it just kind of hangs there until about at 20 degrees, and it slowly creeps up, and then it will kind of hang at 24 degrees, then it goes up to 28 degrees, and then it slowly gets to 30 degrees, and that's it. And that's all the way in by 3,000 RPM, it's at 30 degrees. Anything before that, you're going to be detonating it. It's a big detonating machine.
That's how this thing was. It was like, it literally was not so much even the timing curve, because it would get worse if you backed it off. I think the big thing was the I really think the big thing was that thing for some reason creates hot spots in the cylinder, and put it under big load and you add fuel to it, those hot spots make it pre-ignite like easily. And it's kind of been that way from the beginning. And I think it's because the chamber is so small that it's actually seeing the entire outline of the chamber as the sharp edge around there is causing pre-detonation is what I think is really going on. But to answer some of the questions that have come up about it, I guess, so Dakota's asking, so Dallas used a 351 Windsor with 302 pistons and an aftermarket crank. What kind of rods? Okay, so it's a 351 Windsor block, 302 pistons, an aftermarket like a Eagle crank, I think is what it was, or Scat. I think it was a Scat, actually. It was a Scat 385 crank. And the rods were stock 351 Windsor rods because they're shorter. So the shorter the rod, technically the more torque you make. That was kind of the idea behind it. It never really, I was very impressed with it as a quench motor, but if you had to run it on 91 octane, you hated life. It ran great on 93, but did 93, the extra price of the 93 really, did it benefit from the extra mileage that I gained? I don't know. I spent all last winter trying to get it to run on 87 because gas prices were just going up, 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 up. And I'm like, okay, I got to do something about this. And the only thing I can afford to do is screw with this thing for 6 months until I can get it to run on 87 octane gas.
Yeah.
So what I did is I threw a regular stock Mustang computer because before it had a Cobra. And then, I actually went down in injector size. I went from 24s to 19s, and it actually cleaned it up, which I think it may have been overfueling it the whole time. I don't know. It's almost worthwhile that I hate the combination to the point where I hate it now because it doesn't really do any more than 20 miles a gallon. It usually is around 18, and it's not ideal. I'm not happy with it, and the combination itself is not right. So it feels anemic. It's unhappy most of the time, unless you're going 74, right? Like 72 to 74 is like the magic number. It'll get quiet inside the cab, and it's like, oh wow, that's the cam is working with the intake, but it's got such a small window. It's only like 2,000 to 2,200 RPM, and then it's like nothing, right? And so at the one point getting 18 miles a gallon, it's not happy. Now, the good thing is that truck probably got 10 miles a gallon from the factory. So, I mean, it almost have improved it by 100%, but it just doesn't feel like you're winning.
So, that's still my goal in my Slant 6 is that, I got to get 30 miles a gallon out of it. I've been trying to do that for a little while. I've come close with the 204 of the transmission I gave you. I think I got to 27 or 28. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it got close. I just didn't like the way it shifted and a few other things, but going down the freeway, it was beautiful. So
it was just, and that's kind of how mine is. If you're running 72 to 74, it's great.
Yeah.
But the drivability outside that, you're just like, I want to run my face over, right? For building this thing and throwing a bunch of money in a hole. I've often considered actually just going back to a 302 and see if I know that 302 does not make enough torque to make a big truck like that go down the road with 355 gears. And it would be absolutely useless as a truck. Like, hey, I'm going to tow my race car to the track. Yeah, right. Give up on that thought. I rode with a 302 before in a van, in an 87 Ford van. Man, it just had no nuts whatsoever. 302 is not made for that.
What's the camshaft that you have in it right now? Because if you technically, if you widen the LSA, you can cut down on some of that. Compression.
I have. It's actually the stock 351 Windsor truck cam. I have my own. There's a camshaft made from Ford in the 80s. They used to offer a replacement engine called the high torque 302. Okay, the high torque 5.0, and it was the engine that was available in Crown Vic, Grand Marquis, Lincoln Town Car, T-Bird, Cougar.
Was it the cop car engine? The cop car?
Right. And it had a regular 302 firing order, but it was a roller cam. And it is my happy cam. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because I have never found a 302 Ford that's a much more versatile street cam. Now, when you start talking performance-wise, this thing is not what you're looking for. It is not at all. My T-Bird running down the highway would get 30, 31 miles to the gallon, with a tailwind, And most of the time was around 28, 29, and it had 355 gears, and the car weighed 3,200 pounds, okay? It was perfect in that 302. I tried it in the white truck when I first got it running. I rebuilt the 351 Windsor that was in it, and I put that high torque 302 cam in it, and it was just happy as a clam, right? Yeah. The problem is it has the original 302 firing order. So when I went to sequential fuel injection, all you have for options on that is a Mustang 5-liter computer, or you have to find a 92 Lincoln Town Car, 91 or 92 Lincoln Town Car, 90 or 91, that's what it is. Lincoln Town Car computer from California only. And that's because they were mandated mass air. California cars were mandated mass air from 90 to up. Because they had better emissions. And so if I can get one of those computers and put it in my truck, but see, my truck is just a cobbled together computer system, EEC4 with pins removed and taken out and swapped all over the place, that it would be really, really hard for me to go back to that Lincoln computer if I have to do something with that. But I know for a fact 351 Windsor with that high torque cam, and it'll get 22, 23 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back to this. We got Caesar OSO says, hey guys, would you explain to me the direct relation between the rear axle final ratio and the intake exhaust duration of the camshaft? What's the indicated for a 2,000 to 4,000 RPM?
So is he, the direct, well, if you have a low ratio, numerically low gear, then you're not going to really want to run a whole bunch of camshaft.
You want something really tight.
Yeah, you're going to want something that's, like a small duration. Let's just say arbitrarily, say 212 to under 220 duration on the duration on the intake. And if you have, say, a final drive that's say a 355 and above, then you can get away with something much bigger. If you're in a medium-sized car, obviously this changes with weight because it's just about how much load you're putting on the engine. So usually the final drive ratio puts a lot of load if it's numerically low or if the vehicle is heavy. So that's, that's the simplest answer I can give to you for a direct correlation because, that's a big question in a very small thing there.
I just know lower the number.
Yeah.
The more RV-esque factory style camshaft you want to run, because it's when the engine's lugging under that really low ratio and the weight of the car going down the road.
Yep.
It would have nothing but pretty much detonation for you when you put your foot into it if you got too much camshaft and it starts into the power band of the cam.
Exactly. So that's the only real direct correlation between it. Basically, it's not necessarily only final drive ratio. It's really final drive ratio, tire size, and weight of vehicle. Obviously, converter plays into this too because you can use the converter. Say you have a low, say a 276 gear. Let's just take my Slant 6 car because that's a great thing here. It's a relatively heavy car for a Slant 6. It's weighs 3,300 pounds, I think is what it was. And I have a 276 gear in it, and I have a high stall in it for this reason. I have a relatively large cam in it because I wanted the peak torque to be in that 22 to 2,800 RPM range. So I have to put a decent sized camshaft in it. Plus a Slant 6, you don't RPM them typically. You can, but it's a long stroke, very small bore. So I tend not to take mine over 5,000 just because there's really no point. It just can't flow enough air. So What I do is I have on this one I have a 217 on a 106 LSA loop separation angle, and people are like, wow, 106, yeah, but it's all about the triangle, because I'm trying to build the overlap triangle. I'm trying to build a lot of torque, and I want that torque to happen right now so I can get that thing up and going, and then because of the bigger duration allows it to carry it out. So I'm relying on the converter to build that torque that I'm not getting there, because I can get that the K factor is up there like 1.2 or so. So it's actually making more torque than the engine's actually doing when the converter's actually working. So in first gear, I can use the converter to get going, and it gets it out there. Now we're dealing with very small numbers here. We're dealing with Slant 6, like maybe 250 foot-pounds of torque, 200 horsepower, if that. So that's the only you can cheat a little bit. And then when I went down the drag strip, I lowered the tire size to take away more load on it, so that way it would actually accelerate faster. So the only direct correlation I can tell you is that if you have this is the simplest fact, and I'll repeat it, but it's weight, tire, the rear axle size, and the tire size. The bigger, the heavier it is, the lower the number, the bigger the tire. You're going to want to keep your intake duration on the camshaft much smaller. And when it's smaller too, you can also a little tighten it up to build a little bit of torque, but you're going to try to keep it in the torque angle. I hope. Does that make sense? Dallas? Does that seem?
I think it sounds fine, actually.
Yeah.
The rear gear ratio has more of an impact on it than pretty much anything else.
Yes.
Because gears in the transmission, you're always, even if it has an overdrive that's causing it to act like a 260 something rear gear, it's the same kind of principle, right? But rear gear ratio is how steep the curve, right?
That's right.
That's how you're looking at it. And then the weight of the vehicle is the boulder that you're trying to push up that steep curve. Okay. And the higher you go, the steeper it gets. Man, it is a really tough job. I mean, you think of it just like that. That's where converter, weight of the car, rear gear ratio are everything when it comes to building something that's efficient. Okay. Yep. They all have to be refined because it has to be dialed in to the purpose of the engine that you built. Okay. Because if you're wanting to go before you buy a single thing for a car, what you need to do, maybe this is probably the conversation that we need to have on this thing, but you have to determine what the purpose of the car is. And that's why I always hate people saying stupid stuff like, oh, it's going to be street strip. Okay, there's no such thing as street strip. It either
one or the other.
And sucks at the street.
Or it's right in the middle. It doesn't do either one of them very well. It's right, kind of this, kind of that. But
you're sacrificing something for the other, right?
That's right.
And then it's like he's saying, it's not good at either one. You take it on the street, man, it runs okay for what it is, but the drivability sucks, and the fuel economy sucks, and it gets hot in traffic, it sucks. And then you take it to the track, and it's like, man, you got this gonzo motor. Why is it so damn slow? Well, it's slow because the combination is a compromise of a whole bunch of crap to make it a street strip car. When in reality, if you really would have thought this out, it would have been cheaper for you to build a street car and a strip car. You could have literally built two cars for the price that you're going to have in a street strip car that's actually not good at either one. That's why I like nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide you can have a street car that's very streetable, and then you take it to the track and it's Jack the Giant Killer. It's freaking, like it literally is Mr. Hyde. The problem is it's never going to run like a race car because it's a street car with a bunch of nitrous on it. Is what it is. It's going to run out of leg at $5,000, no matter because you have a street car that you just put a bunch of nitrous on. And I mean, you can compromise and push it a little bit further to the strip, but then you're going to lose stuff on the street. I just like, hey, I'm building a strip car or a street car, right? Street car never gets headers. Ever in my life will a street car I own have headers again. Ever.
That's why on the Slant, I didn't put headers on it. I went with those dual Dolce duals, which are like a mat. It's like a cast iron kind of like, a header for like, the front three and then the back three. And then I ran the equal length tubing to tune it. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I would never run it on the street.
Yeah. Street cars are meant to be like enjoyable, right? You don't want to have to work on them all the time. You don't want to replace header gaskets. And then you don't want to be the guy that shows up at the event at the track and your junk is slow, right? You get laughed out of the place. Yeah. Professor P, Bear Rose Garage asks, it's a cam question for a 460 big block Ford 9-to-1 compression. If I take it to 10, it's going to 521 cubic inches. Manual trans, 410 rear end, tunnel ram, 3,000 pound car, hack job ported stock, 68 heads, and it's another asphalt hot rod.
Okay. So I guess really what comes down to is what kind of RPM, because I can tell you right now that the 460 9-to-1 camshaft is going to be wildly different than the 10-to-1 521, because a camshaft that works in a 460, let's just say at 6,000 RPM, in this 521 would only go to, like, say, as far as peak power, would be about, let's say, 5,000 RPM. So pick one or the other. And is this going to be a roller deal? I'll tell you what, send this to Slant Daily Garage at Yahoo, and I'll hook you up, and I'll even give you the masters for each one of these things and the lobe separation angle that you should run. But yeah, this is a big question. I can answer this for you. Just send it there. Do you have his contact by any chance, Dallas?
This is Kim Barrows. I don't have his contact. I can probably get it.
Yeah, just send me his thing, and that way I'll send him an email with what he needs. Because this will eat up a lot of time for that question. But yeah, that's there's two different camshafts for that, and then I would make the 460 just a little big cam, so that way when it goes to the 521, you could use the same cam, pull it out, and then we could just do a regrind on it, and then that way it'd work.
I think he's kind of on the fence. Like, if I've taken it to 10-to-1 compression, and that's because he's probably going to have to buy pistons, it's just going to go to 521 cubic inch because he can get a whole stroke kit for about the price of a custom piston.
Yeah. And if it's a hydraulic roller, that would definitely be different than a solid roller. It would be probably about 10 degrees less with a hydraulic than it would be for a solid, just because of the lash. You add a little bit of duration because of the roller.
What would be neat was Big Block Ford one of the engines supported by that DLC coated lifter?
It's going to be, yes. Yeah, that's why I'm saying this is why I want him to send it to me, because maybe we could even
the reason why I ask is like maybe you could maybe you guys can work something out with that thing. Maybe
send it to me and we'll talk. How about that?
All right. Kim Barrows, I am not looking for a 302. Please don't bring me one. The last thing I need is another engine in my garage, because then I probably won't have a place to stand. But my favorite engine is that standard output. I like the 302 HO motor. I mean, they were cool when you would throw nitrous at those things. God, they just became freaking way bigger than what they were. But I like the standard output high torque pieces on the road. So Dakota's saying, so to skimp on octane, you widen the LSA, and you're talking like 112 rather than 110 to get less octane requirement.
I would never put it just on a number. Like, I wouldn't just say 110 to 112. I would just find out the duration that I have first, intake and exhaust, and then I would use the lobe separation angle, so that way we can cut down on the overlap. That's all you're really trying to do, is cut down on overlap when you do that, because that way, if you have any type of overlap, that's going to trick it thinking that it actually has more compression than it does. You widen it apart, then it basically allows it to bleed down. So it acts like a less compression.
Man, Kim is tired of tripping over his F-150 California emissions 5-liter that was in a truck. So, and I don't know, maybe we can work something out. But I'm not gonna expect anything from you. And gosh, that's a long way to go to get a motor. I tell you what, like, didn't Stephen Hott's kid won got your Ranchero, right? You should throw that 302 in the bed of it, haul it down there for him.
Hey, go one up to Wannabe. He actually has a decent question right here.
Okay. Wannabe says, I'm looking for info on head flow across the valve seats. What's the best valve angles? 39, 45, 55?
Well, I'm assuming that this is going to be for a street car. For a street car, you're really going to want to do a 3-angle. Usually, you kind of get like a 60 degree, then you do like say a 45, and then you get like in say 15 to 35 typically. But as far as I think what he's talking about is where the seat contacts. So he's only talking about the one where the actual contact is. 45 is going to be your best all-around driving performance for us. 55 is going to be more of the pro stock guys. That's the ones where you would high RPM. Those are going to be like one type of deal. And it's just because they're going to want to sink more. But if it's just something that you're looking for to drive down the road, I would go with the 45. And that's basically what all of us are going to want to need. It's a 45.
Let's see here. So back to what we were saying about the street strip car. The jack of all trades is a master of none. And that's true. Dakota's saying that if it's mine, it'll have headers. If it doesn't already. Jody Pearson says, my headers, or I got headers on my coffee cup. And this is just based on my experience. I got tired of changing header gaskets. Header gaskets are like the bane of my existence. I mess with odd stuff, right? So you go buy your Chevrolet header gaskets or your small block Ford or whatever header gaskets over at O'Reilly's.
Yeah,
I have to order mine. It takes a week to get here. And then when I finally get them on, there's only 2 companies that make them, and nobody makes anything awesome. One thing that I did find, though, like here recently in my life, is these. Yeah, I was just going to say that. I got Remflex was at PRI, right? Yep. I don't know if you saw them. And I told the lady, I said, I don't know if you know this, but this is the best damn header gasket I ever seen in my life.
Ever. Every one of my cars has got Remflex on them.
That's exactly what I will. That's what I'm doing. Exhaust manifold gaskets are out the window. They're going to have Remflex on every single thing I got. And I need to get some kind of deal worked out with Remflex through the AHRA to where if you're a member, you should be able to call them and jobber some Remflex header gaskets. Because, man, I'm telling you, those are the best header gaskets.
I fly the flag for Remflex. I'm telling you, I have them even for my Desert Dart. When I get the Gen 3 Hemi, I'm going to be driving headers on the street because there's really no manifold for it. And I'm putting Remflex on them because I've never had one problem from my Slant 6. People blow out gaskets all the time on their Slant 6 just because of the warpage and the slippage and whatnot. I put Remflex on it, no problems. They're perfect.
So Dakota's asking, do you reckon they'll make the DLC-coated lifters for Pontiacs?
Yeah.
So a Buick, Olds, and Pontiac, a lot of them have the same size lifter as the Chevrolet. It's just where the oil band is at.
Oil bands differently, but yeah, absolutely.
Since it is an 842 lifter, I'm almost certain that they'll make them for a Buick, Olds, Pontiac just because a Chevrolet is just as simple as moving the oil band.
Yeah. Oh, Mopar, man. Yeah, I didn't know. I went to his page the other day, and I didn't even realize that I wasn't a sub for him, the one right below that one. So I subbed him. You're welcome, man. Yeah, I was watching your stuff. So, good. He's got stuff for Slant 6. Love it.
Moperman 1978 says, I always spray exhaust gaskets or header gaskets with a good coat of copper Permatex spray. No issues. Nope. I pretty much in an engine rebuild kit, if it comes with those little those gaskets, like they go right in the recycle bin. And what's sad is like a Buick engine gasket set will come with like those crappy gaskets, but it also has all the rope seals to put the front and rear. And I throw about half of it away before I even use anything out of the damn gasket set. So let's see. 51 Flatty says, Professor, what cam do you suggest for DS393? I'm building one now.
DS393.
Hey, oh, okay. Hey, D put a Q-Jet on it.
You know, if you send that to the Slant.
Oh, okay. He's probably talking about me. What cam do you suggest for Dallas's 393? I'm building one now.
Oh, you are? Which
Well, no, that's what he said. 51 Flatty, he said, what cam would you suggest for my 393 in my truck? Because he said he's building one now. And then he's telling me here later, because that's what I figured out. D, what he's talking about, D is me. So I got the D in me, right? Hey, D, put a quadrajet jet on it. No. I like the EFI. I do. I do like my quadrajets, jets, but I'll tell you what, you cannot find a quadrajet jet manifold for a Ford. They're pretty much square bore. And I don't mind square bore carburetors, and I don't mind running an adapter plate, but they never run right when you run the adapter plates. They never run right.
Yeah.
Let's see. But he was saying, what cam would you suggest for a 393 like a one in my white truck? So,
is that that's for the Ford, right?
Right. Say he's building a 393 just like my Ford truck. He wants to know what kind of cam you think I should use.
Oh, okay. Now I get you.
Like, remember, my 393 has, I think it's 9.6 to 1 compression. It's got AFR 165 heads with the small chamber. They're the 58 cc chamber.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the intake manifold is a Lightning lower and then a Ford Explorer upper. And then I got those crazy, you remember those crazy tri-Y headers I picked up at the swap meet in San Diego that were like $1,100 and the dude sold them to me for $60?
I remember that. Yeah. Hey, your connection's getting really bad. You're kind of blipping in and out.
Quiet, you mean?
Huh?
Too quiet, or I'm getting choppy?
Choppy, and you sound, it's jingly. It's your voice is jingling, and your screen's freezing.
Oh, well, I guess I got to stop playing with the internet.
Yeah, I think. Are you still there? Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm here. I was just kind of wondering what you would suggest for a camshaft like that, because that's what this guy's asking.
Okay. I would start somewhere in, this is obviously going to be something for mileage. And I believe what's in yours is like in the 215, 220 range, isn't it? A duration of 50 on yours?
Mine is a stock Ford cam.
It's a stock
Ford truck cam.
Oh, it's a stock Ford truck cam. And what's he trying to? I mean, what's he trying to do with this? Is he trying to pull? Is he trying to mileage?
He's trying to do the same thing that I did, where it was a truck. You're trying to use it as a large cubic inch V8 as almost like a diesel application.
Oh, okay. Now I got you. Okay.
RPM, mega torque at 2,200 RPM, fuel economy around that same RPM.
Yeah, then I wouldn't go over 215 duration on the intake. So 210 to 215 duration on the intake, somewhere in that range. I would put it, if he's running 9.5 to 1, he wants to run gas anywhere he drives it, I would put it on a 114 lobe separation angle, and I'd run about 8 degrees more on the exhaust minimum. So let's just say if you're running, say, 215, then I'd probably put it at, say, 222, 23 on the exhaust side. And that would just help it scavenge a little better if you're trying to lug it. But that's about the biggest I would go. And that would definitely give you a ton of torque right there in the mid-range. Plus, it'd allow you to run any type of fuel you wanted if you're running, say, 9.5 to 1.
I was just kind of taking notes on that.
Oh, yeah.
No big deal. That's all I was doing.
Okay.
Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, dude, let me make you a camshaft, man, for that truck.
Oh, it's a roller.
Huh?
It's a roller Ford. I would be broke. It's a roller Ford, and it's got those retrofit roller lifters on it. Because I got the early block. It's an 89 block.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we should get together, and I should make something for the truck. But that means I got to take the motor out of the truck again, and it needs rings anyway, and it needs bearings. Got it.
You could just do a dingleberry hone on it. Put some rings on it. Put some
I can't necessarily do. What I need to do is find a new block. Okay.
Oh.
This one, man, I don't know if you know the story behind this motor or not. When I first built it was the quench motor. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it had the F4TE roller cam Ford block. Okay, I cracked that block putting the timing cover on. And it was like, oh, right? Like all the money you just spent building it and having it bored, and it cracked the block. And for 2 years, I did what they called sputered it back together, where you take molten copper and you stuff it down in the crack and you heat it up with a torch, and then you drill out the bolt hole and you retap it all. And that's what I did. And it worked good for 2 years, and then it finally just split up through the water jacket. And it was pouring water out. I was about 400 miles from home, and I ended up just taking the radiator cap off. I put a gallon jug of water upside down into the radiator, and then I strapped it into place with some bungee straps, and then I bungee strapped the hood down where I could drive, but it was literally sticking up like 6 inches, right?
Yeah.
And that way I could at least go 50 miles or so before I had to put water in it, because it was pouring out. It was on the pressure side of the pump, so it was just pouring out. And I got it every 50 miles. I pulled over and dumped a bunch of water in it, and I bought it I went and cleaned out the whole entire row at a Dollar General to get demineralized water, right? And but I made it home, and I put the 393 in there, and it lasted 8 months, and it ate a lobe off the cam. One of the roller lifter wheels stopped turning, and it ate a lobe off the cam. And I was about 600 miles from home.
Wow.
And it was hammering. Oh my God, I'd never heard such a god awful noise. I thought I had broke a rod. It was hammering so hard. I drove it from Paducah, Kentucky, all the way to where I live at. I guess that's not 400 miles. It's probably 200 miles.
Yeah.
Hammering all the way here. And when I took it apart, I couldn't find anything wrong. I'm like, what in the world? There's nothing wrong. All the bearings are freaking fragged. And I expected to see something broken. I couldn't find anything broken. And then I finally let me pull the cam out. And I pulled the cam out, and it was coming out fine until I got to I don't know. I think it's low. It was cylinder number 7 on a Ford, right? So it would be like 5 on a GM or a Mopar.
Yep.
It had ate the exhaust lobe so bad that there literally was probably like a quarter of an inch of material turning that whole cam. God, it had ate it up. But okay, so let's get back on track here. Let's see. Dakota said he put the cheap header gaskets on his Trans Am. When they go out, I'm going to get the fancy ones. But I've heard if you soak them in water the night before, they will last longer.
Yes, they do last longer, but they don't last very long.
Don said he's got no issues there, so it may be on your end then, Shane.
Could be on my end, yeah.
Let's see here. Doug Narden has jumped into the chat, so now we're really rocking it out. So, hey, Clint, Colleen, love that custom bumper on the D50 Dakota. Orange drink power. Yeah.
Hey, while we have a little lull, I want to show you guys some jewelry. You want to see some jewelry, guys? Look at this. This is prototype number 1 for a Slant 6 to a small block Mopar. So this is it. This is the very first one. We're going to go fit it, make sure it works, and that way I can start putting an A500. I want to try an overdrive train again. I just didn't like the way that the 200 shifts. I'm not a big fan of the way the GM shifts. I mean, it was a great rebuilt transmission. I just like the way the 904 727 shifts. So
I do not like that 204R. I'm right there with you. I've had one, and they're really okay. Low gears, they're snappy shifts.
Yeah.
They're snappy. When it gets to go into overdrive, it's like sliding into a sleeping bag or something. I don't know what it is. It's like
I like positive, not hard. I want a positive, firm shift. That way I know it's in gear, and I just don't like a slunk. You know what I mean? Does that? It's not. Yeah.
Well, you would like my switch pitch Suburban.
Yeah.
Man, whoever built that train, they knew what they were doing. All right. Okay. I don't see anything new in here. Gosh.
Yeah. But yeah, so The whole thing of this thing, though, is that what I was trying to do is the factory makes one of these, and I used all the dimensions, but theirs is 1 inch thick. I'm trying to go with as thin as possible. Plus, this thing is really light.
Well, is it billet?
It's
probably cast, right?
Yeah, it's cast iron, but it's also really thick. It's an inch, and whenever you get a converter farther away from the crankshaft, obviously you're going to get some sort of issues. So I'm trying to suck that thing up as close as I can to it, and also too, if you can adapt it to it, you don't want to start shoving the transmission so much farther back, because obviously you have a space constraints, because you have the torsion bar in the car I'm going to put this in. I'm still using my torsion bar, so it's still got to exist. But when I put the 204 on there, I cut it and reinforced it, so technically there's only 2 bolts that hold the mount to what would be the torque, the torsion bar, bar. So this way I just don't want to have it go all the way back. So I'm trying to make it as thin as possible, and I'm trying to make it as inexpensive as possible, because you can get aluminum plate that's already done. All we have to do is profile it then, and I'm trying to keep the cost down. I'm not trying to make tons of money on these things. All I really want to do is just get as many of these out there so people will drive their slants more, because the biggest problem is going A to B for a very long time. You either have to have, like me, 276 gears or a ton of RPM, So
see, okay, it's you're actually in a pretty good position, because all right, I'm a little envious of doing the daily commuter stuff that like you're doing. The gas mileage daily commuter that you can make on your own, because Chrysler made a zillion darts and little Valiants, and like the Barracuda was really small up until 69, and you have all of those cars pretty much to choose from that you can put a slant in. And then you still had Dusters and all that all the way through the 70s up until an Aspen, right? Yeah. And the Aspen still wasn't super heavy. They were like 3,400 pounds.
Yeah.
So they're not too bad. And then they all fit a slant 6, which is genius. That's the way it's supposed to be. My beloved engine manufacturer or automobile manufacturer kicked the V6 Buick to the curb in 1967, and then built Luxo barge type cars all the way through like the gas crunch era, right? Yeah. And then in 1977, they jumped back in with both feet, and they literally made one rear-wheel drive mid-size platform that was a wagon that I could use. And it's a G-body / A-body wagon, right? Your Malibu, your Century, your Regal wagon, up through 87, but I think they stopped making the wagon like somewhere around like 85, because I've never seen a later than 85 wagon. The Malibus I have, but the Centuries and the Regals I haven't. So I only got like a 5-year window to find a car that I can put a V6 Buick in and then just run the wheels off of it, because I know I can.
And what I'm trying to do with this is that, remember, I've always told you, that 2,200 to 2,300 RPM going down the road is like, that's peak efficiency.
Right.
So here's basically what I got, is that first gear in that transmission is 277, second is 154, third is 1, and I believe the overdrive is like an 069. So it's like everything that you'd want. So with a 355 gear, which is readily available, and my tire diameter, which is 26.3, that puts me at 2,300 RPM, puts me right at 74.55 miles an hour.
Oh, that's perfect.
Exactly. And that is absolutely perfect. And that's it. Once I start going over 75 miles an hour, that frontal section, that coefficient of drag is just crappy in a dart, especially when that's a 4-door, because the glass is actually taller. So the car is technically taller. So the
you got to remember, the speed limit when that car was designed was about 55 miles an hour.
It does that beautifully.
They didn't take into account the car going any faster than that. So if they even put it in a wind tunnel at one point, it wasn't anything faster than probably 55 miles an hour. The car.
And I really noticed it too, from 70 to 75 to 80. And with my 30 miles per gallon, I'm trying to do this above 70 miles an hour. So I'm trying to do it at 75, because that's technically the speed limit anywhere you go nowadays is between 70 and 75. Even though it may say 55 or 60, people are doing 70, 75.
Yeah, I know.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, Doug Narden says his buddy's trying to swap a VW diesel into a D50 and make a little dually out of it. I think it would
that'd be cool. Yeah, that would be cool.
Colleen's asking any ETA on 360 heads. I don't know what she's talking about.
I think she might be talking about the Edelbrocks. You know what? I'll look into that tomorrow, Colleen, and I will text Damien and I'll let you know what I find out.
Doug Narden saying that he prefers the full-size 80s GM wagons, not the smaller G-body wagons. I do like the full-size wagons, but man, have you looked at the price of any of them recently?
Gone up. Everything's gone crazy.
$500 to get in just a shitbox wagon that you used to be able to get for like $200. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't know who's paying that kind of money for them.
I think it's people that are just now starting to get out and they're like, man, I used to have this really cool car. You know, it's the same thing with like the Dodge Darts. That's why they went way up in like the early 2000s, is because people are like, I had one of those things in high school. I've got a little money and I'm going to buy that again.
Well, so, I know they were rock solid reliable. That platform was from like 77 all the way to 96. And I know the later that you get in the run, which is like you get your LT1 package cars in there, your 94 to 96 Roadmaster wagon, they're upwards of 12 to 15 grand now for some ragged out 180,000 mile wagon. I don't know who in their right mind is spending that kind of money on a 90s wagon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they ride nice. They don't ride that goddamn nice. That's ridiculous. You know, 15 grand, they'll go buy you a truck that's 4 years old, 5 years old. So, man. But, and I do like them full-size wagons. I've had 2 or 3 LeSabres from 77 to about 82. Those things were awesome cars. And lucky me, they've all been 2-door cars. And I'm actually looking at one right now as a 77 2-door LeSabre, which is, I don't know, I think they look sporty.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Fab Race Mod Repeat says, Dallas, for the record, any car with a Hemi option doesn't technically need any wind tunnel testing. That's probably true. I mean, they did have a few extra horsepower to spare to get through the wind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I'd love to put a V6 Buick in something like that, but I don't think it'll. In one of them full-size wagons, God, it'd probably be anemic. And even if I got the 252, it'd be kind of defeating the purpose of what I'm trying to do, which is get good gas mileage for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Colin Tebow says, thanks, Shane. The sooner they come in, the sooner I can have my 318 back.
Right. Yeah. You know, speaking of that, speaking about turbos, you know, I a little off subject, but I was going to run a twin turbo. Man, I was telling you about that on my Slant 6. But Gil Welding, he does a lot of. He seems to be building a company kind of around fabricating parts for the Slant 6. He's already got for the Dolce Duals a manifold where you can bolt like a
T3 or T4 flange on it.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't remember. It's T4, but it's one of those turbos that you get from a Dodge diesel truck. So you can just
just like the one I was doing, the HX35.
HX35, that's exactly right. But for me, that's going to be way too much. I would want 2 steps smaller of a turbo if I'm going to do it.
Well, yours is, how big is it? How many liters is it?
3.7, I believe.
3 points. Dude, get a Grand National turbo. Well, actually, that one's probably kind of old now.
Yeah.
I bet a stock one of those wouldn't be hard to come by. What's wrong with the twin EcoBoost things? You can get them cheap.
Yeah, I can get them cheap, but packaging, you know, just as much as I want to keep it as minimal with the piping as possible. So if I can get a small single, I think I'd be happier with that, you know, because I'm going to have to definitely put an intercool on it. So 2 small ones, you could combine them and then go back over, but there's going to be a lot of piping for that. And it just looks so clean, his little pipe that he's got, you know.
Yeah. Well, so Big Billy Racing's asking me, why not a Vega or Monza for a 3.8 turbo? I don't want a turbo application. I just want something that's going to knock down 30 plus miles to the gallon for something I can build at home. The Vega, okay, here's the problem. When you look at cars that are that old, the maintenance on it to keep it on the road doing the kind of miles I do every day, I'm not taking it to a car show at the next town over or taking my kids to go get ice cream. I'm doing 5,000 miles a month, right, on ragged out junk. And do you know how fast a ragged out junk Vega or Monza would be if I was doing 5,000 miles a month? If I could keep it on the road and without having all the tools I need in the world just in the back, I imagine it would probably not last much longer than one season.
Have you thought about just doing like a 75 or 76 or even 74 Dodge Dart, 4-door that nobody really wants, and just putting and just
I have. I've actually been chasing like Aspen wagon or Valari wagon, right? Because you could get one with a Slant 6 or a 318 or whatever. I wouldn't mind something like that, but see, I'm not a Mopar guy. Matter of fact, I've owned one Mopar, right? Well, I take it back. I've had two. I had my Ram truck, but that doesn't really count because that's not an original Mopar piece. But I'm not a Mopar guy. Most of the stuff is so weird to me. I'm telling you, when you separate the motor from the transmission and you're like, what the hell happened to the flex plate, right? It's like that kind of stuff is what really just weirds me out. It's all of the stuff I know works the same principle, but it's just there's little odd things that are so weird that just weird me out. And I've never ever been a Mopar guy.
Yeah,
I had that Barracuda. That was it. That was enough for me. I didn't want another one. I just didn't. I wasn't happy with them. But the Aspen or Valari, the reason why I haven't been looking at them is because they're the only things still available that you can get.
And they're cheap. And those Slant 6s came with 2 barrels. They're Super 6 on most of them.
Well, I was trying to find myself a reasonable Roadmaster when I started. I was looking at a 92 or 93 Roadmaster with TBI on it. And most people would laugh, but I have a Buick 350 intake manifold that I had made to EFI. And I found out that the Holley HP fuel injection works off of GM sensors. So it literally plugs into a TBI throttle body and uses the IAC, uses the TPS and everything from the GM TPI or the TBI. I'm sorry. And especially if you got a later TBI. So what the intake manifold I have made is a quadrajet manifold, and they make an adapter to put TBI on a quadrajet spread bore. And so I did that on this Buick 350 intake manifold, and I used just the throttle body from a 95 TBI big block Chevy truck that's 650 CFM. And then I ported it, and I removed the injectors, and now it was literally just a throttle body. That was a 2-barrel that was plug and play for the Holley HP. And the idea was to put a 350 Buick in like a 92 Roadmaster, use the linkage and everything, the throttle linkage for the TBI, and hook it up to my Buick 350 with a TBI throttle body and Holley HP EFI, and then throw a 204R at it. But still, you're looking at 25 miles to the gallon. That's about what it's going to get at the most. And that's it. I wanted something that's like literally, I got to double what I get. I need 40 miles to the gallon, right?
So, you know what? Why don't you just go back? I mean, go to like an early 90s Honda Civic, man. I mean, that would be.
I got to figure something out.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I'd like it to be extreme, and I'd like it to be American stuff. And then when you see it, you go, "What the f is that thing?" Right?
Right. I did a simple search here in my area. When 76, we're going to pull a John Wilburn here, but 76 Plymouth Volair, good. I mean, $3,500 4-door. And that's a Slant 6. Nothing will run forever. Okay.
51 Flatty, 5,000 miles a month. Where the hell do you go? I run to all the AHRA tracks, put on the events every weekend. So from March to October, I'm pretty much running hard. An El Camino with a G in front end would be cool. It would be cool. I've actually seen a couple of them. Mopar Man 1978. I plan on running true dual air induction on the Dart Valiant using cast aluminum air hat by Offenhauser through Speedway Motors, part number 2748.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm actually going to be doing something similar to that. Once I get my fuel injection done on this green one, right there where the air goes in, I'm going to run a tube that runs over to that. So that way on the front, right there where the air vent comes in, I'm going to be, using that for the airflow.
Well, Jason from Jason's Garage has snuck in here somehow without me seeing him. I don't know how that was, but he says I always have wanted to do a dual TBI setup on a tunnel ram. And okay, when do you remember? What was it? 2011 or 12? The NHRA Pro Stock cars went to fuel injection.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Well, I was playing with fuel injection on my T-Bird, and I figured something out. And these guys, I don't think were doing it yet. I think they were running single injectors, and they weren't limited on injectors, but they were running a single injector at the bottom of the runner, just like they were in regular factory applications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at the way the tunnel ram works, the downside of the tunnel ram is this. When you put carburetors on it, the fuel would atomize at the top and then would recollect in the plenum, and it would kind of just like be undrivable for the street, right? For racing applications, when you go up there and it's either idling or wide open throttle, it was kind of fine. But if for a street application, the fuel would kind of recollect underneath the carburetor, and it would have fuel distribution issues big time. And then it would kind of run like crap, and sometimes they'd load up and all that stuff. But in a racing application, the injector likes to be directly below the throttle body.
Yeah.
That's where it makes the most power. That's where better atomization occurs, the whole 9 yards at wide open throttle, because the velocity is super high. I thought, okay, well, they weren't limited on injectors, and those Holley HP units that they were using, you could run a 16 injector setup. So you run, like, say, 8 small ones down at the bottom of the runner, and then you run 8 really big ones up at the top. Like, just make it'd be like an injector hat for a fuel car with, the injector hat that sits underneath the blower or even on top of the blower. It doesn't matter. But they used to put them under the blower for like your high speed stuff, right? And then it would idle up top.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put the ones under the blower, let's say you just did like in the Pro Stock application, you just had 8 injectors, 1 for each runner, but it's directly below the barrel on the throttle bodies that they were using. And man, you could run those 16 injectors and pulse width modulate each one to get the ideal air fuel ratio for each individual runner. Oh my God. You can't make more power on that.
We've done a lot of testing with, and I've seen a lot of tests done this way, but the reason why carburetors really keep up with, let's say, a throttle body or even like some sort of, even when you have the multi, point or sequential fuel injection, is because the fuel is higher up when you're running a wet manifold and you're cooling the air. So for me, what I would do is I would run a small idling type of injector when you're just tooling around town. But when you really want to get on it, I would have a big injector as far up the runner as possible that I could get away with. Even if I could shoot it above the port, as far as where it comes down into the tunnel ram. So that way it's basically injecting there. So that way the whole way down the runner, it's cooling the charge down. And I could almost guarantee that you would get more power that way. Even if you could even put an injector above the throttle blade, like, shooting straight down, that would actually be ideal.
Right, like a TBI unit.
Yeah, but even farther up than that, I would actually put it above it. So that way it's like the TBI units are about this far above it. I would put it as far above it. So when it's full throttle, it's yeah, I mean, literally, that there's a few guys out there. I think some Formula One guys, you can actually look at them, and they're so far up there, and it's injecting down and above it. Obviously, you would create a bomb if you ever had a problem, but if it's wide open throttle, it wouldn't make any difference.
Well, if you wouldn't actually create a bog because you could use that injector down at the bottom of the runner. If it was large enough, use it for idle and part throttle.
Yeah, no, I mean, not a bog, a bomb, like something.
Oh, a bomb.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of fuel hanging out above. But,
exactly. So yeah, that would actually that would be ideal. That would be the best thing to do if you could.
Well, Fab-based Modern Pete is telling me that I just need the 87, 89 Crown Vic or Grand Marquis wagon with the 289 and a small turbo.
Yeah.
That might work some. I don't know. I'll figure something out. This is something that's been killing me for a while. I got to figure it out. Michael Schmidt saying 30 versus 45 degree valve face angles on a flathead or slant sixes. What are your thoughts on whether 30 or 45?
Well, I can only comment on the slant six. I built a few flatheads, but I didn't do a lot of the valve job at that time. For me, on the slant six, I use the 30 as the back cut for a slant six. I use the 45 that seals, and I believe it's 60 on the other side. But as far as how I do it, I always love the 45 that actually touches it. But on a flathead, I really don't know on a flathead. That's something you would have to really, because flatheads are kind of like a Briggs and Stratton, you know.
Right. Well, the flathead is actually just okay. You're looking at a completely different flow angle, right?
Yes.
It's like literally like a 180-degree turn.
Yeah, and it goes like it comes in, goes up, and then goes back over. You know, so I really can't comment on that one without giving you an answer that I wouldn't be fully comfortable with. But on a slant six, I would do a 30-degree back cut. You know, honestly, even on a slant six, you take a stock valve and just get rid of that ridge on it. You've already gained about, maybe 15, 20 CFM just by getting rid of that. Then you do a 3-angle valve job on them and just cleaning up the port. I've increased that thing almost 20 CFM. I think it's 20 or 25 CFM by doing nothing more than that. And when I say clean up, I literally mean just cleaning the bowl area and then just cleaning some of the flash out where the part line was. And that made a huge difference. So on that one, I don't feel comfortable answering anything about the flathead, but I can say that for me, 45 where it touches.
All right. Well, Wopar Man 1978, is it worth time or material making a spacer plate for the throttle body on an EFI?
Yes. Yes. In fact, that's exactly what I did. I think in my last video that I did, or maybe two for Slant 6, I left that on there, the intake, and I just packed it, but I cut it out and tapered it so that way I could put an extra spacer on it, because I'm trying to get as much plenum volume as possible, so that way it's not going straight down and making a turn, and I'm trying to even out the pulses between on the 1 and the 6, so that way the 3 and the 4 are just, they tend to run the richest, these run the leanest, so I'm trying to get it as evenly as to the fuel distribution as possible. So after 1 inch, so I got about 1.5 inches of plenum there, and it's actually a decent amount. And so I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it with a spacer, and I'm going to try it without and see what works better.
Yeah, well, I just know that the more plenum volume that you have, generally the happier everything is power-wise. Yeah. Not always torque, but power-wise, it'll always generally make more power. The more the spacer that you add. The more volume that it has in the plenum. The Ford EFI trick back in the 80s used to be, they made a phenolic spacer that would fit underneath the lower intake, or in between the lower and the upper intake manifold, which would extend your runner length.
Yep.
And it would always make more torque and seat the pants. No lie, you could literally swap that thing in and you'd feel it the first time you drove the car.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's a dry manifold too.
Right. Yep.
So it just makes a difference.
Makes a huge difference. And it was all just plenum volume, runner length, and velocity of air. That's really all you're looking at.
Exactly.
So it's worthwhile of trying and playing with that on every combination you ever build, right? Like tackle one thing at a time. Get your timing right, get your air-fuel ratio right, throw a spacer under it, and then here's the new thing. Don't forget to go back and play with the air and fuel again, and don't forget to go back and play with the timing again once you do that. Because when you add some, you're going to find that it's going to goon your air-fuel ratio up. It's going to goon it might not goon the timing. The timing will be the same, but the timing curve, the engine may be more responsive to a different timing curve now that the air-fuel ratio is different. It's just a weird combo.
And if you're going to be driving these old cars, I've always had that. Remember, even back in San Diego, I had that fast style air fuel wideband, but they've come a long way now. They actually have one that you can put onto your phone. So that's an app. I don't know if you can see. There you go. That's an app. So as you're driving down the road, you can read your air fuel mixture and you can just check it as you're going. So you can see, like, going up hills, do I need to put a lighter spring in there or heavier spring? And so you can really dial it in. So I'm a huge fan of these things. So that way, if you need more fun and volume, you'll see it right off the bat. If that thing's moving all over the board, I added an 1.5 inches on my Slant 6, and now it drives within 1 point between the front and the rear, and I still have the carburetor the correct direction. If I turned it 90, I could probably cure most of these problems, but I don't want to be turning things sideways. I want to just keep it as stock-ish as possible, making it work.
Well, Clint Street Machine says, got to get going. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, Clint.
Yeah.
It's literally at the last live before Christmas. And man, I am just not feeling it today. I swear. I don't know if I'm run down. What? I don't know.
I'm just a little tired. And also, too, knowing that it's going to be 2 degrees tomorrow.
Well, I think that's what's getting me is that tomorrow the high is 18. 18, right? Like, dude, do I just want to even get out of bed tomorrow?
Right. Well, for us here, it's going to be 45 when I wake up, and then it's going to get up to about 47 degrees, and then, or maybe even 50. But then by 8 o'clock that night, it's going to be 2 degrees tomorrow. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, I'm having the same thing. Just hard getting going. So I'm trying to get my projects all stacked up for the weekend, so that way I can just stay in the garage.
And well, maybe I'll do the same. I need to get the turbocharged 350 Buick ready to go. So,
yeah.
Colleen Tebow, what is the youngest age allowed for racing at an AHRA event? Well, as of right now, okay, so I don't have a junior dragster class. So the youngest age that you could technically be would be probably 15 years old, where you get a learner's permit, and then you just get a consent form from your parents saying that, hey, this is fine. For 15-year-old races, they have a learner's permit, right? Mm-hmm. That's the big thing is I can't take somebody that hasn't been to some type of driver training class, right? But without saying too much and without really making people all weirded out, that's about to change. Yeah. And it's not what you're thinking. It's not going to be some 9-month-old driving a car, but there will be things that change, I think.
Yeah.
Coming soon. Let's see. Big Belly Racing, Dallas or Shane ever used Mega Squirt Pro?
I never have. I've seen people use it, and I've seen it work. It works great, but I personally have never used it.
Oh, well, I have never used it. I've considered it, but my buddy actually had done it one time, and he had pretty decent success with it. I've never used it. To me, I don't know. I've never played with it. I don't have any experience with it. And putting your own stuff together at home, EFI wise, I could easily do it. I was trained to do that in the Navy, soldering components and desoldering components.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be too difficult to do it, but I don't know. I guess when I was looking at it, that stuff was pretty new. That was like 2003.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, because remember that Ford Escort? Maybe it didn't. I had a Ford Escort GT. I
remember that. That was a performance one.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
a 9-liter or something like that.
Yeah, I think it had the 2.0 Mazda engine, twin overhead cam. It was a 5-speed, and I did all the tricks that you could do up to the point of actually having to tune it. As far as I was going to put a Mega Squirt on it and try it from there, but I just never got around to it because it was my driver. It was my daily driver, and I was like, I just don't want to mess with it.
Well, I was looking at it, and I looked at it as like there wasn't a lot of technical support, and there wasn't a lot of people using it. And so you didn't have a lot of information to lean on. See, I'm an information hound. When I do stuff, I read about 200 forums and all these posts all the way back to the beginning of the internet, and until I have a good solid understanding of how something works or to do something different. I spend a lot of time doing research before I actually pull the trigger on anything, right? Like, so I did the 5-lug swap on this 63 Buick Special. I have been researching that for over a year, right? And that's something that I do, like, probably like what most of these people on here, I would have to say they're probably watching YouTube, taking a dump, stuff like that. Me, I'm researching forums and I'm finding the information that I've been looking for like a long time. And I keep like on my phone. When the smartphone came out, it was like my best friend, because I go in there to drop my deuce, and I'm like, I'd have 45 pages open constantly on my browser on my phone of stuff that I had researched, and I'd find the information on. And that's how I do it. I research a lot of that stuff. Well, Megasquirt in like 2002, 2003, that was new. That was like cutting edge. And I didn't want to be the guy that's the R&D subject matter.
For everyone else. For everyone else.
Trying to figuring out what's the problem. And then after you do it for 9 months or a year and you're pulling your hair out and you're hating the car, somebody else figures out that you didn't put an ampersand in a spot that, you know, needed an ampersand. Right. And you're like, God, man, my life sucks.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that dude. I wanted to be able to, like, and I knew how to manipulate the EEC4 pretty good. And I'm still pretty damn good at it because I've taken this white Ford to 2 different tune shops and get a chip made for my combo. And guess what? It came out of there running worse than it did when I tuned it myself with a couple of variable resistors and a screwdriver.
Yeah.
And I'm still pretty good at it. So I thought about running the EEC4 on my race car. But no, on the MS Pro, I haven't done it. I know that's the longest answer you ever got for a yes or no question, probably.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bear Rose Garage, my phone is blowing up with this storm warning. They're saying as low as -45 with wind chill, but I doubt it will dip that low. And they're closing parts of I-15 as well. Now, and Kim Bear Rose is up in Idaho, right?
Oh, okay, makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know if it's northern Idaho, but so when I got stationed in Australia, I was already stationed in Hawaii, and I had to move everything I had out of Hawaii, and I shipped my race car to my parents' house, and the government would ship it, so I had to pay for it out of my pocket. So I paid, I want to say like $2,000 to ship it from Hawaii to California, and then my buddy and I got a U-Haul trailer, and we used his truck, and we loaded up my car and drove it all the way to central Illinois with that on that U-Haul trailer. And what was funny is it was like November or early December of 2008, and it was right when winter actually really sets in, right? And here we are. We're driving across the country on Highway 90, I think it is. Whatever comes out of like San Francisco area. And I think it's 80 or 90 or something like that.
80, yeah.
And man, we got to like, I don't remember, North Dakota or South Dakota or something like that. And all of a sudden you could see this freaking defining line in the sky. We were wearing shorts. We just filled up. We're driving east, and we get to this defining line, and all of a sudden this broadside wind coming from the north on the driver's side of the truck hit so hard, right? It blew the truck on the road, and we're like, wow, that's a freaking serious cold front. And as you're saying that, wearing shorts, and I had like I was doing the Southern California thing, is a shorts and a sweatshirt on, and tennis shoes, right? So as I'm saying that, like, man, that's a freaking wicked wind. You can start seeing your breath inside the truck. I mean, it must have dropped 30 degrees.
That fast, yeah.
And it was the most craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anything like it. But,
Yeah, you're kind of way behind.
yeah, I am. I'm screwing around. Let's see. Mostly Old Parts and Rust says I built the MS1 on the Duster in 2002, so that would have been about the right time. That was when I was down.
Yeah, that's about right.
Mopar Man says that his area -17 by Friday, high winds and ice flakes. Local news said road crews and their chemicals won't work, so everybody's panicking. I'm just going to stay home.
Yeah, I'm just going to stay home. Why? Why go anywhere?
I actually have a plan, and I need to go execute it tomorrow. But I got the propane tanks off my travel trailer, and one of those heads that screws right on the top of the propane tank, that 10-pound or the 20-pound propane tank.
Yep.
And it's like, we lose power, no problem. Turn on the propane heater, buddy. Right?
Right.
So,
yeah, you're quite a bit back. Let's see, any questions? No. Whether
Colleen Tebow's asked me, hey, go ahead and throw all that out there. It hurts my feelings. One last question. Any plans for Rod Drop Live on New Year's? I probably told a lot of people that I was going to do that. Well, no, that we were planning on doing it last year, and that's when I got the COVID. No, there's no plans for it this year. John and I are just going to announce what's going on with the No Name Nationals on December 30th on John Wilburn's normal Friday Night Live plans.
Oh, yeah.
And then I might have something else planned for New Year's for the AHRA. I'm shooting for that as my target date. It won't be a Rod Drop Live. But it might be something else.
It could be cool. Could be very cool.
It could be totally suckfest. I don't know. I'm working on it now, and I'll see if it works. There's one piece. Oh, Danny Boyd, can I flash an A9L for 29 or for 24 pound per hour injectors? No, I cannot. But I can manage the pulse width. So. And you do that with this little cheater resistor in line with the signal wire coming from the MAF. So,
yeah. In fact, on my Slant 6, when I put the throttle body on it, I'm taking out the 50-pound injectors and I'm putting in 36-pound injectors because I don't need all that fuel. So.
Yeah, probably not, right?
Yeah, right.
It's going to be fine with those 36 because it'd be like having 18 pound per hour injectors in 8 cylinders, right? Yeah. So that's still plenty to support like 250 horse. Dean Stevenson says Mega Squirt is friendly now. Tuner Studio helped a lot. I just haven't messed with Mega Squirt. Like I said, I really was thinking about it like 2002 because I could have built those. What I was looking at doing was, you know how you originally when it came out, it used to come with the components in a bag and then like board, and you had to solder it all on. Man, the Navy sent me to a school that's what I did. Is I repaired circuit boards that were unrepairable, and you do that out at sea. Well, I could turn one of those computers out in probably one a week, and there wasn't a lot of guys that had those skills, and I literally could have pieced the whole thing together for peanuts. And then sold them and made quite a bit of cash.
Yeah. That was also the time before the internet. So, to do this, you either one had to know someone that did it, or two, figure it out on your own. And most of us just wanted to get back to racing. I didn't want to try to mess with anything. I wanted to
out. There was no YouTube. There was no like you guys. If some of the older folks, they probably already understand this. That way back when. If you wanted to learn how to do something, if you didn't know somebody that did it, and generally you didn't know if they were going to give you good information or not, because they might have a whole bunch of bad habits or been taught bad stuff. Yeah. You used to go to the library and you'd get a book and you'd read the book and then you would practice at home without having a demonstration, right? They used to call that book learning, and then you had practical application.
Yeah.
Where you applied it in a lab, right? And you did a practical lab. Okay, let me catch up here. All right. So Doug Narden says that Thursday night the lake effect snow machine will hit overdrive here in Michigan. They're saying it's going to be bad. We will see. I'm assuming this is that polar vortex that everybody was talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're talking about. And also too, like right now where I'm at, the wind's coming from the south, and it's actually rather not super cold, but it's damp, so you know that there's something there, and it's rather like almost slightly humid, kind of. It's still cool, don't get me wrong, but you can feel the moisture in the air.
Yeah, it's fairly humid out right now.
Yeah.
So $225 per MS2E, a good thing to DIY. They're actually not that hard. If you know how to read resistors and you know how to figure out where is pin number 1 on a flat pack, and or even better, if it's the positive side of a freaking diode, you can easily do this stuff. It's not hard. All you need is a basic multimeter. It'd be great if you had like a O-scope or a Huntron tracker, but you could do it at home with a multimeter and put these things together. They're not all that complicated. So, but I don't think there's any real money to be made on them now, since Holly mass produces computers, and there's no real money to be made on those things. You might be able to save a couple of bucks, but what's your time worth these days?
Exactly. I agree with that.
Let's see. Danny Boyd was saying I hope it was Taco and Cerveza Tuesday. I'm there with you, brother. I love Taco and Cerveza Day.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, that's the one thing I do miss. Yeah, so we'll get on to that today.
Well, and yeah, Shane, I'm thinking about this, man. Like next year, the end of race season, I got a vacation somewhere. I got to go somewhere, dude. At the end of the race season, I'm pulling my hair out, and I just can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
And just take a vacation, dude. I think we should go down to Baja, Mexico. When did they run? Baja's October, right?
Yeah.
Dude, we should go do Baja, be right on the starting line, drink a whole bunch of beers, be real sloppy drunk, and just let them freaking fly by us at 100 miles an hour. And
I always wanted to go down at the start, where they're in the wash. Yeah, right in the wash.
Yes, exactly. Like they generally they take off, they make that left turn, then they make a right turn, then they drop down into the wash, as you're calling it. It's essentially the runoff. The runoff river, right?
It's essentially a sewer. That's where all the sewer goes.
Right. And then that's where it's like a whole bunch of junk in there. It can either be water or it can be dirt mounds or whatever. But I wouldn't mind standing there and just surveys it up and watch them go by at 100 miles an hour and cheering them on.
Yeah.
So, I have like this sick, I don't know what you would call it, this sick disease of the sportsman racer thing, where I know you can't win Baja 1000. It would take $1 billion to go down there and compete with some of those trucks.
Oh, easily.
You built like a Ford Ranger with like a small block Ford and a whole bunch of nitrous, and you just finish the race.
Yeah.
You're better than 50%.
There is a class, and I forget the number off the top of my head. I want to say class 11 or class. No, it's not. It's like maybe class 14 or something. It's a stock Volkswagen Bug, literally stock. All you can do is put tires on it and a cage.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I have. There's a movie I got. It's called Dust to Glory.
Yeah.
It's all about the Baja, and that class I can't remember what it's called. I don't know, Baja Bug class. I know what you're talking about. But yeah, it would be cool to kind of do that. I don't know where you can even find a bug that would be capable of doing it anymore.
Class 11.
Class 11. That's it. Yeah.
Class 11. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't make up prices, and I don't know what the cost is, honestly, because I just don't know. But if you message me at Pulido@edelbrock.com, that's Pulido@edelbrock.com, or slantdailygarage@yahoo.com, I will get a cost for you, and then that way we can make a cam together, because that would be good. It shouldn't be very much. Is this going to be a flat tap and a roller? Well, whatever. Just send it in the email, and I'll get your price.
Let's Let's see here. And see Jody Calhoun saying that Baja would be awesome too. I think it would be neat just to stand there on the starting line and watch them go by. I mean, if you've never seen that before,
Amazing.
especially when those trucks take off or even the cars, it doesn't matter. They got so much suspension travel and so much slop in the suspension that when they take the first couple of curves coming out of, what is it, Encinitas? I think it is Encinitas.
Ensenada.
Or Ensenada. That's what it is. Okay. And they take those first couple of curves. It's like literally watching, like the top of the vehicle will be like rolled over on the ground, right? And the tires are still stuck. And they roll over so far. And it is so mind-numbing.
Well, imagine a three-wheel motion like a car with hydraulics, but these guys are doing 100 miles an hour plus. So yes,
right, wide open.
Wide open, yeah.
And that's what I always thought would be really cool. I just thought it'd be neat to like home build a Ford Ranger, because you use the Ranger because it's got that twin I-beam, right?
Yeah,
and you just get long travel twin I-beams that you make at home and puts a big gonzo crazy tires on it, and then just a small block Ford that you spray the crap out of that. It would be even better if you say, I pulled the small block Ford directly out of Pick Apart on Nirvana Way, right? And then I'm just spraying it with a nitrous kit I got from JBA that was used. And I finished the race. And just finishing the race, you would be a freaking epic hero amongst regular people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 50% attrition at that race. 50%. There will be teams that spend $100 million to win that fail. And you beat them with a $2,500 home-built clunker. Right,
because you actually went across the finish line. Yeah, the whole thing about Baja is just surviving it. That's why I look at Drag Week. It's just survival. Let's just finish it. I don't care where I placed. I finished. Ooh, let's go drink a beer.
Yeah. Let's see. Doug Darden says, forgetting Taco John's restaurants in my area. I haven't seen those since I was in Minnesota last.
Taco John's.
I've never heard of Taco John's.
All right, I'm going to Google that. Yeah.
Oh, yes, Dust Devil. That's the beginning of the race is the first, I don't know, it's not even a mile probably, and that's where they run on asphalt at the very beginning.
Yeah, well, there's lots of parts on it that they run on asphalt. I think 15% or 20% of the race is done on asphalt. There's times where they just have to get between towns, and they're going through town. They're going through a town at 100+ miles an hour. So yeah, they do.
Let's see, man. They're really whoever's Fuzzy's Taco Shop pretty much sucks, says Danny Boyd. I don't know where this is at all. But,
yeah. That's right?
Yeah, sorry for Fuzzy, but it's like here's my thought on this taco shops. Okay, there's no taco shops outside Southern California. There isn't. They're just wannabes, imitations, right?
Yeah.
But the sad thing is, Del Taco and Taco Bell still survive in San Diego. How? I don't know. Who eats there? Who the hell goes to those places? I want to know.
I'll admit it. Okay, you're going to hear it from me. I went to Del Taco a lot, and here's why. Yes, every Tuesday, or was it Thursday, they had the chicken soft taco with that white sauce. They were like $1 for 3 of them or something like that.
Yeah,
man, I'd get them for the whole family, and we would take them home and doctor them up. We put our own stuff in them. But that was like, we would do that like once a month. But yeah, we would go to Del Taco quite a bit.
Dude, the only time I ever ate a taco that wasn't like at a good SoCal taco shop was, do you remember like in the 90s, we used on the weekend, especially if you were under 21, you used to bombard Tijuana like freaking hard, right? Like, okay, you like kick the gate in, kick that spinning gate in. I'm here to freaking, blow up Revolution hard.
Yeah.
And they were waiting for you. They were like lined up in the street. Senor, come in. And they shuffle you in the club because they get paid some money every time there's somebody came to the door. Once you're done bombing Tijuana and you drink up 47,000 beers at Club Excess or wherever you went, you know.
That was a place. Club X stuff.
Yeah. And I would hit that Jack in the Box like literally on the border.
Oh,
right?
Yes. The one right by the trolley station.
Yes.
Right next to the trolley station.
Yes, dude. And I would freaking like, they'd say, they had like a 3 taco deal for like $1 or something at 1 a.m. And it's like, I'd go in there and I'd be like, I need $3 taco setups or whatever, right? Like, and you'd buy 9 tacos. And it was perfect because you take the trolley and it would take you all the way back up to like Point Loma area. And we would normally get off at like Kansas City Barbecue and get in there just in time for a night train, right? Like, do you know what I'm talking about that?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Okay. When the trolley goes by, okay. Kansas City Barbecue is the restaurant where they filmed Top Gun, right? They filmed the scene where Goose and Maverick are literally playing the piano. That is Kansas City Barbecue in downtown San Diego. There's a bar in the back of that place. And every time the trolley comes by, shots of Night Train are $0.25. Okay? And if you get off the trolley at Kansas City Barbecue, you walk right into 25-cent Night Train shots. And that's what we would do. It was like the smartest thing ever. If you're already coming back, you're already pretty drunk, you know, you jump off the trolley at essentially Kansas City Barbecue. You walk right in, put $0.25 on the freaking bar, and you get yourself a Night Train shot. And then you walk from there all the way back through freaking Point Loma, which is 6 miles, right down Harbor Drive. And you would get to the base where we would be stationed, where I went to school and stuff at. And that was the thing, is like, I loved it. The what is it? The Jack in the Box $3 taco set.
All right.
Yeah. Never had Del Taco, says Danny Boyd. You're not missing out on anything.
Well, here's the thing. If we're going to talk about this, let's talk. Taco Bell is the bottom of the barrel. Well, Jack in the Box 3 tacos for $1. That's the bottom of the barrel. I still eat them sometimes when I go there. But then there's literally one half step above it is Taco Bell. Now, Del Taco is quite a bit higher up on the echelon than it actually uses fresh ingredients. They cook everything right there in front of you. So it's kind of like a fast food version of a taco shop that's more corporate, but it was actually halfway decent. So that's kind of how that goes. But Del Taco, if you can, there's actually one in Florida. I'm not sure where these guys live, but there's one in Florida, and I cannot wait to sometime when we go down there with the kids, I'm going to go do Del Taco one more time.
Well, it's no big deal. I just think we need a road trip out Baja. We'll get some Del Taco on the way, buddy. And we'll stop at freaking Jack in the Box and get 3 tacos for $1. They're probably not $3, 3 for $1 anymore. But and I'm definitely not going to stop at Kansas City Barbecue and Night Train it up. But we should just go down to Baja and watch those the Baja trucks and cars and the Class 11 Volkswagen Bugs run through town through the wash.
I'm so down for that. I've never have done that. I've done pit crew, for a few people, to where basically you just sit there. You actually pit crew for about 7 or 8 different trucks, different vehicles and different classes, and then they pay you for that. So it's basically a big party, and then there's about 7 hours of work because they're kind of coming in at different. It depends on where you are on the race course. If you're near the end, you could be there for a long time, so you got to pace yourself. But if you're the first stop, man, you're done in about 3 hours.
Yeah, I think we should just go down there with really no expectations. Do you have friends you can set up your camper with down there?
Oh yeah,
because that's what I can do is we can just do like a I guess it'd be like a convoy out to SoCal, and then I can, because I'm retired Navy, I'll just set up out at the campground out there, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll just run down to the Wana, and actually Ensenada, and then sit up there, watch the running of the bulls, and then head home the next day or something.
Yeah.
But we can make a whole deal out of it, man. We'll stop in Oklahoma City at Pops. We'll stop at some of those eclectic, weird places in the Swan gas station, and all those places on I-40. You know,
Yeah. The good stuff.
Route 66, truly.
Yeah, yeah. I can't believe there's not any tech questions today. It seems like it's
it's awfully slow. I think everybody's, just like I was saying, I wasn't feeling it. Everybody's kind of thinking about the looming, impending, freezing death coming, right?
Yeah, yeah. John says, Professor P wants Bob Evans to put tacos on their menu.
I saw that. I was laughing. I was hoping that he would see that.
That's actually good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know that Bob Evans next to the hotel can't wait for PRI and Professor P and all of us to show back up next year.
Yeah, right.
Well, what did you say? You didn't eat a single meal outside of Bob Evans, right?
No, that's it. Other than that, I brought my food with me. But yeah, other than that, anytime I ate it was Bob Evans. Absolutely.
So Danny Boyd says, when the radio programs get bad at work, or when I'm at work, I'll turn on the Mexican station. Unlike American whites and blacks, the Mexicans have evolved musically. And I tell you what, I don't have any problems listening to the Mexican stations because it makes me think of one place and one place only. And as soon as I say it, Shane's going to go, yeah. The junkyards in Southern California, in San Diego, that they had the taco truck out in the parking lot and they'd be playing music and you would be in there working, taking something out that, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain the junkyard experience there compared to a junkyard experience everywhere else is a letdown, right?
It's an event. You go there, it's an event.
I remember walking in there and I had never seen anything in the junkyard newer than probably 1991. Okay. And when I went to the junkyard there in Southern California, they had stuff that was 1991. But what I noticed was I didn't even care because it was filled with stuff from 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it wasn't like, hey, we got a frame with one bolt hanging off of it. They had literally full cars.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't junk. It was like, hey, there's 2 SS Chevelles in the back. There's a couple of big block Thunderbirds that are filled with FE motors. And you're like, what? An FE in the junkyard? How did that even happen? But that's how that place was. And I used to listen to the music in the parking lot, and I would be salivating trying to take a rear end out of a Turbo Regal, right? Knowing that as soon as I got that rear end out, and I was going to pay $60 freaking for it, and then walk right out to the parking lot and pay $3 for a burrito as big as my forearm, right? Yeah. There is nothing that beats that. There's zero that beats that. It was my version of Little League with the ice cream truck. You know, that's my version of Little League with the ice cream truck. So,
I'm sorry if you hear it, but the wife is doing her lovely snoring right now. So if you can hear it,
no. Michael Schmidt says he met his Marine son for a quick bite and chat in front of Camp Pendleton at Del Taco.
Right, I don't remember that place.
Yeah. Camp Pendleton's fun, man.
Yeah.
All that desert out there by Camp Pendleton. We used to take the I was with what they call a MIUW, M-I-U-W, which is a mobile inshore undersea warfare unit. And we used to take their off-road trucks out through Camp Pendleton. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jody Calhoun says, my next project is a fuel pump and an exploder. Well, Ford fuel pumps, man, I'm sorry. They do suck.
Yeah,
the ones I found that were worse was like the late 90s, early 2000s GM trucks. Them suckers go bad sitting in the parking lot to sell them. Like, what? And you knew every single one of them that had a bad pump because they pull up to you next to the stoplight and they'd be like, and you'd be like, what the hell is that noise? And then really later I realized it was the fuel pumps were all going bad.
Yeah.
So Dakota's Timeout says, I'd like someone to stand outside while it's 7 degrees here on my mountain and tell me global warming is a problem. I'm not going to get into the political stuff, but I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a kid, my father used to take me to the junkyard every year, and we would go shopping for cars and junkyard in the same situation. it was always snowing and like 10 degrees. Okay. And the reason why, my old man had this crazy philosophy that if the junkyard is freezing, the guy's hurting for cash, right? Because he hasn't sold anything in a while. So he's willing to make a deal, right? And we would be out there literally snowing, freezing your hands off, right? Trying to take a bumper off of a car. And then, you're walking through mud that's frozen. It's a miserable experience.
It's miserable.
Shopping cars. We would go on Christmas Day, shopping cars. Christmas Day. The guy out there willing to sell a car on Christmas Day was hungry for some food. Okay, Dad. Yeah. Let's see.
I don't see anything that's tech.
Yeah. Well, so John says next year he's planning Portillo's and Cope is coming. That would be.
I went there one time to Portillo's. I went there one time when I went up to. We went on a business trip, and they brought us some Portillo's one time, and it was really good. I'm down for that, John. Absolutely, let's do that.
I think we should probably make an event out of it. Like every year it's like the pilgrimage to PRI, but we go to PRI, but that's not the reason why we go. The reason why we go is like the Travis Bell go-kart race, that's held on PRI, or the meeting with Cope at Portillo's, and we have like a Portillo's pie eating contest. Something fun that's interesting.
Yeah. And I hope next year I can actually drive one of my older cars, because man, I did enjoy driving the wife's car because it's got cruise control and stuff, but I get in one of those things and I don't like it, I just don't like it. I drove my Dart for the first time in a long time today down to TCI. Man, I just enjoy driving. It was so good at 75. I would take that thing all the way to PRI, not even bat an eye.
Well, I drove my Suburban up there, right? What I found is the ergonomics inside of the old cars is better, right? Mm-hmm. Like you got a bunch of nice crap in a new car. Like you got a cup holder, and you got armrest, and you'll have cruise control, and the dash will be in a nice layout. On the older stuff, the dash is so far away you can't really read the numbers anyway. The heater works fantastically, like all old cars. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you got. It's like it will burn you out of the vehicle. The seat.
I have to open the vent window to turn my heater on.
So the seat of my Suburban is the older one that doesn't have the headrests, right? It's the one that sits at like a straight up angle.
Okay, yeah.
It is literally more comfortable than the truck, than my Ford truck or any later truck that I've ever owned. You can sleep in the front seat, laying across there, and probably not even feel crappy the next day.
Yeah.
It's the right amount of Americana.
Yeah. Right? And, driving my Dart, it doesn't have a cup holder, but right on my left-hand side, right against the door, there's a little spot, because I got a bench seat. I can put my little bubble cup, and it fits right there, and then it just sits. It's got little spots, so everything's got its own little, spot, And wait a second, go down to the bottom, go down to 853. John Wilburn said something. You got to read it.
Okay, hold on.
There you go.
Question: does the Tornado give more horsepower on the carb or on the tailpipe to promote scavenging? I have no idea, but it's something that's totally worth trying out, right? A-Cove says, I got an E-body manual steering box out of a junkyard in the winter for $40. So, see, it does probably have some kind of truth to that, but, man, you got to put in a lot of freaking pain for it. Yeah. I just was never one to enjoy being outside in the wintertime when it's cold. So D150 says, is retarding the timing 2 degrees per 100 shot a good rule of thumb for NA?
I think it's a degree for every 50, I believe. I have a notebook, so I don't have to remember that. I will let you know in 1 second. Let me access my notes here real quick.
I'm almost certain. I thought it was 4 degrees for every 100. I thought, but
it's basically 5 degrees per 50 horsepower of nitrous.
5.
Yeah, that's what NOS is saying. I don't remember it being that much.
I remember it being 4 degrees for every 100 shot, because I would pull 8.
Nitrous Tech, yeah, saying okay, yes, okay. Here on the Nitrous Tech, they're saying 2 degrees for every 50 horsepower of nitrous. That sounds about so. It's 4 for 100. Yeah, yeah. I have a whole bunch of notes in my all those little things I have to keep track. I was like, oh, where's my nitrous book? Oh yeah, here it is. So,
well, I'm dumb. I hadn't written any of this down. It's all just in my head, and it probably will get ruined one day because I'll have a stroke or something that'll gack my brain all up. But I just remember I used to pull 8 degrees for a 250 shot, and that was not enough, right? It's not the rule of thumb. By rule of thumb, it's not enough.
Yeah.
But I never had any problems with it, and I was running it on the ragged edge. Is really what I was doing, because I'm also 2 fuel jet sizes smaller, and because lean is mean. Lean is mean, and if you blow them up, and you just go get another one.
Yeah, now this makes sense. I remember it being 2 degrees for every 50, because when I ran a 250 shot, that would be about 10 degrees. So yeah, it's about right.
This guy right here, John Wilburn, says he's planning a PRI thing for next year. Dude, we got to do something with Travis Bell. I think that would be freaking fantastic, is to drag that guy out somewhere, do something fun. Even if we went to his place and ran around the go-kart track with something, that would be awesome.
Yeah, like on the day after, like on Saturday, because Saturday PRI on that day is just, there's nothing going on anyways, and they shut down. So like, make an event down this track, or burnout, or something.
Looking for, okay. David James got a 6.8 liter V10. Can I delete the EGR and fuel pressure sensor? Having a hard time starting in the morning.
I don't know much about the V10s. The only one I ever messed with was a Viper, and that was making a camshaft for it. Any of the Ford stuff I never messed with.
I'm going to tell you right now what I do know is that if it has a sensor, you probably can't eliminate that sensor without going in there and cracking the computer, because it probably uses that fuel pressure sensor for something. All the newer stuff, man, almost nothing that you can really do to them. I don't know.
There's got to be a company out there that makes a delete for it. There's got to be a company that makes a delete for it.
Oh, I'm sure there is, but I'm sure it's going to take some kind of crack in the computer to get rid of that fuel pressure sensor if it feeds something to the computer. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So Dust Devil Garage is saying, remember the cup holders that you hung between the window glass and the door panel? I want to find one of those for my duster. Those are probably going to be hard to find, buddy.
Yeah, what's funny? He says that. I was actually looking for those for drag week, because I wanted one so I could just put it in there, because the window would always be down. I couldn't find them anywhere.
Well, all right. So you remember when they first started putting cup holders in your car, and you're like, wow, what a freaking novel idea. Everybody else used to have like I don't know what you would call it. It was like a little transmission hump tunnel thing that had 2 cup holders in it. And then it had like a little tray, right? And almost every car you got in had that. Yeah. And then they started coming out with cup holders in the center of the car. And it was like, oh, what a great thing. And now that I have an 80s car again, I'm like, God, I wish this thing had a cup holder. That's the only thing I wish that it had.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also learned that, damn, I could still hold a hot cup of coffee between my legs and drive down the road with no hands while eating a sandwich. I can still do that.
remember we used to go to like say O'Reilly's or was it Craigan or Chief or whatever it was at the time. They would have those little consoles that you put on the hump, and it's got had a
That's
little.
what I'm talking about. The two cup holders in it.
But you just, I went to look at my local places around here, and for that, nothing at all. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, we're at 2 hours.
Oh dang, that went by pretty quick actually.
Yeah, it did.
Even though we didn't have a lot to talk about, I just rambled on. Dallas, Shane, and John, instead of diners, drive-ins, and dives, it's daily drivers, AHRA, and Portillos.
Yeah.
It would be something cool. Maybe that's what we should do is like do a rendition of, AHRA, PRI, diners, drive-ins, and dives. But we literally, instead of finding the really badass, we go find the crappy places, right?
That we can afford, right?
Sucks. Really sucks.
Well, there was plenty of that. Remember coming back from PRI when you're in downtown, going all the way across town, there was all those random. Remember, I was telling you guys a story about how dirty everything looked and how people I can't believe people live like this. There was about 10 restaurants on that road. We could try any one of them.
Well, and here's the neat thing. Like, John Wilburn has this picture, and I know we got to get going because it's over 2 hours, but John Wilburn has one of the coolest pictures that you'll ever have seen. It's probably the best marketing and promotion thing I've seen in a long time. We were coming back. There was a gas station. It was on the north side of the road when we were going west towards the hotel. And it said, it was like gas was like $3 and something a gallon. Diesel was like $4 a gallon. And then it had one that said $1. And we're like, shit, what the hell is $1? Let's pull in there and look and check it out. And it was Slurpee price. Slurpees were $1. But they saw the $1 on that big sign and it got you in there.
That's right. Yeah.
And I just think that was ingenious. $1 Slurpee price. And John Wilmer's got to show the picture. That's the only way to make it better. Right.
Yes. And what's funny is that we saw that and we were all in the car and it blew our mind. But here's the funny thing. Depending on what part of the town you're at, it was either a Slurpee, it was a coffee, or a soda. It depends on what part of town you were at.
Michael Schmidt, anybody want to play with Nitro at the drags with a street strip car? Is it practical to switch to Nitro at the track for fun and then switch back to drive home?
No.
Okay. One, that's not even remotely feasible.
No.
But let's say it was.
Okay.
You would have to have nitrous oxide at a minimum to complement that stuff. You can get it to work. Let's say anything over 50%, you can get it to work on a naturally aspirated application. It's going to make more power. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. But it really works with power adders or boost. That's where it really, really works.
Yeah, I've messed around with nitromethane before, and I noticed that over 40% is your tipping point. Once you get over 40%, that's when you really start to having to worry about, sending parts to the moon. You
might not be driving it back home. The whole thing is like, if your engine now makes 400 horse and it's naturally aspirated, you could probably say if you ran nitromethane, like Shane was saying, 40 to 50%, you're probably making 800 horsepower, right? I bet that's probably the number. It's probably doubles of what you have.
Yeah.
What you would find is the weakest link in everything that you own in that car, like in that one pass. Yeah. So if you had weak rods, they're coming out, right? Yeah. If you got a converter that isn't right, plus the converter wouldn't be right because it couldn't even feasibly jump that big of a difference, right? You hammer that sucker with, let's say it makes 800 horse, but the thing that nobody thinks about is like nitrous oxide. It says 250 shot, right? But no one thinks about the 500 foot-pounds of torque that 250 shot's going to add. The nitromethane is going to do the same thing, right? Because you're just taking the characteristics of your street motor or your street strip motor and you're compounding them by 100%. Yeah. So if it makes 800 horse, it's probably going to make, I don't know, let's say 950 foot-pounds of torque.
the biggest problem that people don't realize about nitromethane is the ignition system that you have to make that thing work.
Because it's wet.
And the amount of fuel you have to put in there to make it burn, because you're putting a ton of amount of fuel in there. And that's the reason why they run those magnetos like they do, is because that's the only way you're going to get that shit to burn,
And they run 2 of them with 2 spark plugs, because one of them will get wetted out. You ever notice, like, when they shake the tires on the run, when they let off and then they apply the gasket, generally they'll have 1 or 2 cylinders out, because what happens is, as it's shaking the tires and it's shuttering the RPM up and down, the fuel pump is delivering so much. Their fuel system is linear, right? The harder you drive that engine, the more fuel it's dumping in. And it's like there is no electronic device on it to minimize it. It's a mechanical system with a barrel valve. So the harder you get into it, the farther that barrel valve comes open. And it's designed that you have a full power run. You're under full power the whole way. Well, when it doesn't need all that fuel, it loads a cylinder full of fuel and it puts the plugs out. So what they do is they'll shake the tires, they put the plugs out, and they'll get back on the throttle. And what you'll notice is there'll be a couple of pipes with just white mist coming out of them. That's raw fuel just flowing through there, right?
Yeah, because you can't get to ignite.
When the clutch starts to lock up and the motor starts to lug, it'll start pushing more fuel in, right? And it'll get to the point where you don't normally see those cylinders come back to light. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they come back in. What happens is keep your eye on the one that doesn't, because it'll start filling that cylinder full of so much fuel, it'll actually hydraulic the head right off of the motor, and then it'll explode, right, into the huge fireball. It's all from unloading them. But, I think it'd be fun to play with it on RC car level.
That's about it. Something I can afford to blow up and laugh at it. Yes.
Yeah, and not so much like an engine that you have any kind of money in. Now, New Year's Eve rock drop, 350 Chevy that you just buy off of Marketplace for $100, put on the start stand. Let's throw some nitro at it. We'll see what it does, buddy. I'm not afraid of that.
Here's another one that I've always wanted to do, is try a diesel engine and put nitro to it, nitromethane.
Oh, hey,
that'd be fun.
Put a diesel with nitro?
Yeah, because they're designed for that. They're designed for that a massive amount of cylinder pressure. So see if it would work. Obviously you couldn't put it, straight in there. You'd have to run some sort of, like say, some of those old. What's that?
Can you see it?
There you go. $1.
Slurpee, $1.
You know what's funny about that picture? I was driving when he took that. He was in the passenger seat. He took 2 shots, like, okay, I'm going to get it. And then he turned and just stuck the thing out the window and took the picture, and that's the picture that came out. He didn't even aim for it, and that's the one that came out the best, is when he's just stuck it out the window. So anyways, man, I got to get jamming here soon.
Yeah, well, we got to get rolling. It's late, so we're 7 minutes after. We appreciate Drag Boss Garage for throwing us a super chat.
Thank you.
Visit the AHRA eBay page and get yourself some decals or hats. And actually, I'm going to get the new merch up here this week before the kids get back to school and all that. I do need to I have some more merch to throw up there on the page. So it will be changing here soon. There will be some more shirts available. And I think I still got some hats left. So, but we appreciate everybody that came in for the chat tonight. It was a small number. I think we got up to like 58 or 59.
Yeah.
But hey, we love every one of you. Thanks for taking the time to stop by.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And for those of you that are watching later, not so much the live time, thanks for stopping by and checking it out. We hope you enjoy it. And if you want to be here for a Wednesday night Tech Talk, 7 o'clock Central, every Wednesday, Professor P and I take our time to answer your questions if we can.
And if you're watching this and it's not live, once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Send me a question there, and then I can either address it on the air here like this, or I could just send you the answer that we email. So,
and thanks John Wilburn and Blake for being the mods. And we're out here until next week.
All right. Merry Christmas, everyone. You guys take